up, everybody? Welcome to trèSci Weekly, Episode 8. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Ullman, alongside the first substantial proof of life outside of the Earth, Tom, Calvin, Kea.
I like the introduction.
That's a good one, right? How are you?
Doing good?
Good, man. Hell yeah.
So your intro was in reference to the movie Life we just saw.
Yeah, we went and saw it. We did the deed. Figured maybe we should just start the show off by talking about it a little bit.
Yeah. So when I kind of planned for all of us to go to it, and I thought it was like it's just story of discovery of life. Like, I didn't expect it to be such a horror movie or sci-fi.
Yeah.
And there was lackluster science. You might want to put it that
way. Yeah. The science is bad.
Yeah.
Really bad.
Right off the bat, from the first scene, it doesn't really follow any sort of plausible scientific theme.
So, yeah, we're going to not spoil anything if any of you guys want to see it.
I still had a good time going to the movie.
It's still a
solid movie.
Fun time. It's a solid movie for what it is, I think, but it's just not billed correctly. You look at it and you're like, oh man, this is like a cool thriller science fiction idea about the first life outside of Earth, and Jake Gyllenhaal's the man and this and that, but it is not that movie.
Yep, not even close.
Not even close. Yeah, we were saying that it just sort of doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It just they take so many liberties, and to put it in like a science frame of reference to start the movie, it just feels odd because none of the science really follows through. So it kind of feels like they're cheating a little bit with their, you know what I mean, like calling it life and then taking all these liberties that make no scientific sense.
Yeah,
to make the plot.
And they just choose to do a lot of weird stuff, like the set on the International Space Station, which has been converted into like a new laboratory to study life, which is like, that would never happen. Why would they do that? Why would they bring the ISS down to modify it to put it back up? It's like, we could just put a new spaceship up.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't make any sense. And then right in the very beginning, when they catch the thing.
Yeah. Right off the first scene, you're like, okay, this is a sci-fi movie.
Yeah. Yeah. But otherwise, it was a fun night.
Entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, if you're into that kind of stuff, I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think it's got bad science.
I was thinking, like, if Neil deGrasse Tyson wanted to do his tweets, like, correcting it,
right,
like, he wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to do one.
Yeah.
The whole movie's kind of just not about science, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Gravity and some of the other movies were kind of trying to be more of an accurate depiction of science.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie's like, you know what, you're going to get scared and...
Right. It's a horror film.
Movie,
it's an alien or predator type film. That's all it is.
All right.
But if you like real science,
that's where we come in.
That's where we come in. Welcome to trèSci Weekly. This is our weekly show where Tom and I talk about science news as it comes up, and kind of our thoughts and opinions on how we feel about what's going on in the world of science.
Yeah, most of the stories come from the past week, current events, and then actually starting this week, we're going to add one story each week that may not be directly from this past week, but is something that we think is relevant to talk about on the show.
You can always catch this show live on our YouTube page on Monday nights at 8:30 p.m. You can support us by going over to YouTube and hitting that subscribe button. We're still climbing the ladder over there.
I got a bunch of good guys in chat. We got James, Mike, Kayla, Nancy.
Right on. Thanks for joining us again, guys. Yeah, we encourage all of you guys watching to jump in our chat room and chat along with us while we do the show. You
got any questions?
Yeah.
Whatever, feel free to comment.
Yep. You can also support us on Facebook, facebook.com/trèSci Weekly. You can give us a like. We got a bunch of likes over the last week.
That was nice.
Not any subscribers, but a lot of likes. So our Facebook went up.
Facebook's going up.
Yeah. Twitter, twitter.com/trèSci Weekly. Tom's doing a heck of a job over there.
Yeah, I try to keep it light, like one post a day.
Yeah.
A nice, good science post if you don't follow a lot of science news.
Yep.
Just to be like a little thing to get you thinking.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bombard you with all kinds of crazy retweets.
Yeah, but it's cool because it keeps you guys in the loop with like the stories
kind of what we're looking at.
That we're looking at over the course of the week. And then if you would like to be a godsend and financially back us, you can go to patreon.com/trèSci Weekly, where you can pledge a financial donation. You don't have to, of course. This show is always going to be free. But, of course, we would appreciate that if you would go and do that for us. With that said, Tom, I think
it's time to get right into the news.
Time to get right into the news. So, I think we have 7 stories on the listing today before we move into that new segment of the show that you brought up. The first one is going to be a follow-up story this week.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I want to jump back and talk a little bit about what's going on with the rusty patched bumblebees, which we talked about way back on trèSci episode 2.
Yeah, so in episode 2, we were talking about how they wanted to put the rusty patched bumblebee on the endangered species list, but they had a freeze from the White House basically saying that you can't do anything for a certain amount of days.
Correct.
And that's where we were at that point. So now how are we looking now?
So on Tuesday, March 21st, the rusty patched bumblebee, which is named Bombus affinis. That's the scientific name. Sounds kind of like a hobbit to me, actually.
Bombus affinis.
So the rusty patched bumblebee has officially been added to the endangered species list, making it the first bumblebee in the continental United States ever to be listed. So it's official now. It's on the list. The Department of the Interior's U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's determination to put the bee on the endangered species list came about on January 11th, 2017, but as we reported back on trèSci Weekly Episode 2, the newly sworn-in Trump administration had issued a freeze on any pending legislation delaying protections for the bumblebee. During the interim, the Natural Resources Defense Council, a nonprofit international environmental advocacy group some 2.4 million strong, filed a lawsuit against the Interior Department for the freeze on protections without, quote, valid explanation, opportunity for public input, or other legally required process, end quote.
Yeah, so they're basically saying you don't have enough, there's not enough good reasons to put this on hold.
Yeah.
So we're coming after you.
Yeah, they were basically like, you can't do this.
Yep.
You can't. So that lawsuit is expected to be dropped now that the protections have been officially granted, but a new lawsuit could be right around the corner. According to an article by the Washington Post, quote, the American Petroleum Institute, National Association of Home Builders, National Cotton Council of America, and 2 other groups described the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's determination under the Obama administration as a rush to judgment executed shortly before President Trump took over, end quote. So these different administrations, which are also, deal with the government quite a bit, we're like, whoa, man, hang on.
Yeah, this is going to affect us, yeah.
This is something, Tom, that I didn't ever really consider when we first covered this story, right? So at first, the Trump administration comes in, they kind of stumble out the gate a little bit with how they're dealing with all the different science agencies, and they issued that freeze, right? They were like, we just want to take our time before we put through any legislation that's going to have some effect, some possibly adverse effect, right? And I never considered that where the rusty patched bumblebee lives in the United States is in the Midwest, where there's lots of crops being grown.
Yeah.
So all of these farmers and all of these builders and all of these, gasoline companies are like, wow, we're gonna have to deal with this if we go ahead and issue these protections. That's gonna make farming
their lives a lot
difficult.
Harder.
Yeah, think of how annoying it is for us on Long Island to deal with the piping plovers, right? And they're a migratory bird, so they're not even here
for part of the year.
Yeah, and that's a headache for us. These people would have to, if they come across an area where the bees are nesting, they have to probably fence it off, and those crops can't be harvested. It's what a nightmare. I never considered that. So I wanted to bring this story back to light because I think it's...
Now that it's actually on the endangered species list, what impact does that have?
Right. It's important to see the other side of it, right? And what I thought was interesting is, again, the traditional science news outlets are not following up on this story.
No, they haven't.
I didn't see anybody, tweeting out, oh, this is what's going on. And it's I don't know, that annoys me because you were so quick to stuff it in the Trump administration's face that they're screwing up.
And now that it's happened, they're just don't let it go by.
And ultimately, they're doing the right thing, right? Ultimately, the bee is now on the endangered species
as it should
list,
be. Yeah.
As it should be. So kind of government actually working properly, I think, for once, where it was all right, we're coming in, we're new people.
In a relatively swift manner,
yeah. So, bravo. Just wanted to put that out there. So these agencies see the protections that come along with the rusty patched bumblebee's endangered species designation as a hindrance to local industry. On the bright side, with the designation, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services can now begin planning and enacting federally funded conservation efforts. Image credit goes to Claybolt Nature Photography, and I want to cut over to a short video. I shared a video on our Facebook page. It's about 7 minutes long or so, about a documentary of this guy who was searching for the rusty patched bumblebee to get footage of it. There's a longer version of that film that's about 20 minutes long. We're not going to watch that, but they made a short little 2-minute trailer for the long version, so I thought that would be cool for us to watch together.
It sounds good.
So Kyle, you let me know when to hit play over there, my man.
A ghost in the making.
It's not playing?
No, not yet.
Sorry about that.
Try it one more time.
Yeah, so let's see if we can retry it.
Give it a reload.
Is it going for it?
Trying to get the video up? Okay.
Cool.
You ever have that feeling that you've lost something, but you don't know why?
A once common animal has become incredibly rare.
So now, that's obviously changed.
We're still very dependent on bees to support our agriculture.
When commercial bumblebees are put into greenhouses with whatever parasites or diseases they might have, they come and go through the vents.
It's a little ominous in the beginning.
Yeah. Painting a bleak picture.
Seriously.
I've been training all my life for this.
There we go.
He said the volume's low, James said.
Volume is low.
It
Sorry
was a
about that, guys.
big deal to find that bumblebee. We're just hoping for more.
We are all in it together.
They deserve a place on this planet just like we do.
We have one chance to save this beautiful creature. This is a test of who we are.
This guy reminds me of
So what are we going to do about it?
This is so into bugs. And it's called The Ghost in the Shell. No, I'm sorry, that's an anime. Ghost in the Making. Cool. So you guys can, of course, go support that if you feel so inclined. But
So
yeah,
before we move on to the next story, I just wanted to say we had a conversation last night where I was kind of like knocking conservation efforts and like trying to really follow through on these endangered species. But you kind of swung me the other way that these what are the words I'm looking for? These
ecosystems.
yeah, like these conservation efforts actually do work.
Oh,
they
yeah.
make the difference. You know that. You know, when you put these actions into place, they're on the endangered species list. They steadily climb back up.
Yeah.
That these conservation efforts do work.
Yeah.
Like it's going to cause a lot of hardship for a lot of jobs and people, but it works.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, we can name species off the top of your head. The manatee.
That were on it and now they're not.
Yeah.
And it just works.
The
It
humpback
takes a lot of
whale.
effort, but
Yeah, of course. But that's the point, right? Is like if you put effort into saving it, you'll
Yeah.
save it. It works.
And
So-
then the last thing was that I was following a story of the Cheerios when they were saying that if you
Right.
buy a box of Cheerios, we'll give you wildflower seeds to plant for the bees to go through and take their nectar and pollinate. But they were sending out wildflowers that were an invasive species to certain areas if you just happen to plant them there.
Yeah.
So then that kind of became an issue as well because they sent out millions of packets of seeds,
Yeah.
not really thinking twice about it. So
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
Kind of wild.
I still can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah.
Like that never got stopped and checked by anybody. I can't believe it.
But
Cheerios, General Mills is a big company.
Yeah.
Like, you would think, but no, I guess not.
all right.
So
I'm glad we followed up on the bees, though.
yeah. So again, I just wanted to follow up because I think it's fair for our audience to hear, why that freeze was issued. Why like you would maybe pump the brakes on putting a species on the endangered species list.
Because it has a pretty big impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on, number 2. Time to talk about some dinosaurs, Tom.
Sounds good. This is a good story.
All right. Paleontologists have been re-examining the dinosaur family tree, according to a study conducted by Matthew Barron, David Norman, and Paul Barrett. Determining the lineage of dinosaurs via fossil records is quite difficult, since there is no DNA to trace out the evolutionary path of each particular species. In the 1887 standard model, I wrote this weird. I gotta change this quick.
Okay.
In 1887, the standard model was set by British paleontologist Harry Seeley, who classified dinosaurs into 2 major groups based on their skeletal hip structure. Ornithischians had pelvic structures similar to modern-day birds and include plant-eating dinosaurs such as Stegosaurus and Triceratops. Saurischians had pelvic structures similar to modern-day lizards and were further classified into 2 additional branches, meat-eating theropods such as Tyrannosaurus rex and plant-eating sauropods such as Brontosaurus. Scientists have typically been unsure where the 2-legged, meat-eating Herrerasaurids might fit into this lineage. The new classification tree proposed by Barron, Norman, and Barrett would categorize 4 evolutionary groups, splitting 2 main branches twice each. All right, so they're basically saying, like, we have it this way, where, like, they all kind of branch off of one another, and then a separate branch, and now they're splitting it up into 2 main branches that each split again.
Yeah.
And they rearrange some stuff here. So, the quote reads, "The researchers looked at nearly 35,000 individual anatomical features based on 457 different features found in 74 early dinosaur species. They used a computer program to model the most likely way that each feature would have evolved from a dinosaur to dinosaur, and used the results to place the dinosaurs into a new family tree." End quote. The new tree would place theropods, like the T-Rex, on a branch next to the Ornithischians, the Stegosaurus and the Triceratops, resulting in both groups having evolved from a common omnivore ancestor named Ornithiscalida. Similarly, the sauropods and Herrerasaurids would be on branches next to one another, having both come from a common omnivore ancestor as well. The new classification solves some inconsistencies paleontologists have been thinking about for many years. One such inconsistency deals with dinosaurs that may have evolved feathers. Quote, while a number of dinosaurs are now known to have had feathers, nearly all examples come from the theropod group. A few examples of feather-like structures have also been found in ornithischians, although some scientists dispute that these are true feathers. Nonetheless, the new family tree places both groups within the same clade, whereas previously they were separate. So it's possible that if feathers were present in both ornithischians and theropods, they only had to evolve once, end quote. So it just goes to show you, like, if you can move a species around on its evolutionary tree, you can account for, like, breaks in the lineages if you can prove that that's, like, how you can do it. So this is a fascinating science to me.
Yeah, it's a little wishy-washy sometimes, I feel like, but it makes a lot of sense trying to reorganize it this way, saying that they branched off this way and then this way, and with the new way they divided it, only having to develop feathers one time evolutionarily makes more sense, because it would be kind of difficult. It's a very specialized thing you'd have on your body,
right?
So it kind of makes more sense the way they put it up, that it only had to happen one time,
right?
So they're kind of just saying what the evolutionary tree is saying. It started from this organism, and then there was some sort of change that went to this organism, and then maybe from that one change it branched off 2 times more. So really what they're trying to do is create a story from the beginning to as they evolved to how they got to be what they look like, as we know from the fossil record.
Yeah.
So we don't have the DNA, all we have is the fossil record and trying to piece together what makes the most sense. Like, what makes them similar to what they are to each other.
Yeah, and it's weird because we have the fossil record, which is all we can derive from that kind of flatly is the age of the fossil.
Yeah, you can date it.
You can date it and what it looks like now. It's like,
yeah,
and
so
to try to piece together
that
what
whole history of evolution is
crazy. Yeah, but
so they said they use a computer program even as opposed to just trying to think about it.
Right. So that actually has been kind of a point of contention for some
other
paleontologists.
people.
So the study itself says, this is just a way for us to go back and relook at some of these
and
130-year-old things.
Something
right.
new about them.
We might be able to change this around, and this might make more sense. So I kind of like that proposition of let's just go back and look. It's not definitively saying one thing or the other. But this makes more sense to me, at least.
Yeah. Seems like a logical way to reorganize it.
Yeah. The other thing that they were saying too is that, we commonly refer to birds having had some ancestry in dinosaurs.
Yes.
And again, that would be with the theropods. But that wouldn't make sense because there was no tie to the bird-hipped skeletal structure. But now there is. So now you can see
a logical story from
now,
dinosaurs to birds.
There is one track that you can track back.
And that's necessary. You need that phylogenetic tree, or else if there's a gap that doesn't make sense, then your lineage is incorrect.
Exactly.
And you need to rework your tree.
Yeah.
And James just had a question. Who was the author on this one?
The authors were Matthew Barron, David Norman, and Paul Barrett. I want to say it was a collaboration between Cambridge University and the National Museum of History in the UK. So...
yeah, but I've always found it really fascinating to try and piece together the history of how things evolved and where did this structure come in and where did this structure come in.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that from this point, these two amazingly different things can evolve from. And it's just they had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
They didn't spread out of the ground. So it's really crazy to watch that come about.
Definitely. So I thought that was a pretty interesting story. And yeah. Otherwise, I guess we'll just keep moving forward.
Sounds good.
All right.
So we're going from dinosaurs to space.
To space. Dinosaurs in space.
This is a good one as well.
All right. Number 3. A quasar, or quasi-stellar object, QSO for short, is an extremely massive and extremely bright galactic radio source, consisting of a supermassive black hole surrounded by an orbiting accretion disk of gas. A particularly bright quasar, named QSO 3C 186, has been studied by astronomers and is believed to be out of place with respect to the host galaxy it resides within. While a number of possible scenarios could lead to the observed displacement of the quasar, a recent study by Marco Chayaberg and colleagues suggests the system may have recently undergone a black hole merger.
So a black hole merger.
Yeah, so black holes...
they got too close to each other?
Yeah, having the most mass out of anything in the universe and, the most gravity out of anything in the universe.
But if they get close to each other,
they're going to attract also. So, and then they possibly orbit each other and
for a while in some crazy sort of swing, and then
could possibly merge into one bigger black hole.
An even more supermassive black hole.
Yeah. So that's what they think we might be looking at. So, quote, a number of scenarios can be envisaged, should just say envisioned. Can be envisaged to account for the observed features. While the presence of a peculiar outflow cannot be completely ruled out, all of the observed features are consistent with those expected if the QSO is associated with a gravitational wave recoiling black hole. Detailed studies of this object will allow us to confirm such a scenario and will enable a better understanding of both the physics of black hole mergers and the phenomena associated with the emission of gravitational waves from astrophysical sources, end quote. So NASA, the ESA, and Ann Field of the Space Telescope Science Institute provide a nice graphic and caption for us to discuss how gravitational waves, which were first detected by LIGO just over a year ago on February 11th, 2016, may have kicked the quasar from the center of its galaxy. So Kyle, if you could just kindly bring that image up for us. I'll bring the image up for us as well. Sweet. So basically what we were just kind of hand-waving and saying, right? Two black holes at the centers of their respective galaxies approach one another. The black holes feel this force of attraction,
just massive gravitational pull
towards one another, and they start orbiting a common center of mass until eventually they come in close enough where they merge. And in panels 2 and 3 here, you can see the gravitational waves coming off of that event, which was theorized by Einstein like over 100 years ago.
That would be a thing.
Yeah, that like these such massive objects
literally distort space-time.
Yeah, create
and carry
ripples.
those waves large distances across space-time.
Exactly. And so last year we set up laser interferometers in Louisiana and Washington State.
Like super precise lasers.
Yeah, called LIGO, right? And LIGO determined a slight time difference in the tracking of those lasers. So that means a gravitational wave ripple must have gone through the Earth, and that's how they confirmed this. That's some crazy stuff, but I mean they must be pretty sure, right?
If they're
And now what they're saying is that this gravitational wave might have pushed or ejected
the
quasar or
out of its galaxy.
Yeah, out of its galaxy. So that's just insane. So now I kind of forget where I was.
The illustration. Yep.
So, quote, "This illustration shows how gravitational waves can propel a black hole from the center of a galaxy. The scenario begins in the first panel with the merger of two galaxies, each with a central black hole. In the second panel, the two black holes in the newly merged galaxy settle into the center and begin whirling around each other. This energetic action produces gravitational waves. As the two hefty objects continue to radiate away gravitational energy, they move closer to each other over time, as seen in the third panel. If the black holes do not have the same mass and rotation rate, they emit gravitational waves more strongly in one direction, as shown by the bright area at the upper left. The black holes finally merge in the fourth panel, forming one giant black hole. The energy emitted by the merger propels the black hole away from the center in the opposite direction of the strongest gravitational waves," end quote. So, that's pretty crazy stuff, right?
It is.
So now, this is obviously a pretty challenging concept, right? So
we have to have...
so don't worry if what we just explained
doesn't
make perfect sense. I want to now jump to NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center and Katrina Jackson provide a video on YouTube that
this is an awesome video.
This is an awesome video. So
3 minutes of very concise, awesome...
Yeah. So let's throw this on.
So they'll kind of go through the animation of what we were trying to describe.
Yeah, I couldn't have said this any better myself, so I figured
let's go to the tape.
Just go to the tape. This is really well done. So Kyle, you tell me when to hit play here.
Check out this Hubble image of a galaxy 8 billion light years away. Notice anything unusual about it? This super bright spot is not a star in the foreground blocking our view, but is actually a quasar named 3C186 that's inside the pictured galaxy. A quasar is the extremely bright light that's emitted by hot gas surrounding a supermassive black hole. A supermassive black hole is a type of black hole that's at least 100,000 times more massive than our sun and is at the center of almost every massive galaxy. But the center of this galaxy is over here, in this green circle. This galaxy's quasar, and therefore its supermassive black hole, for some reason is more than 35,000 light years away from the galaxy center. And the redshift, a spectral signature of the gas in the quasar, shows that the black hole is flying away from the center at over 1,300 miles per second. For reference, our sun is moving through our galaxy at about 15 miles per second. This particular black hole is over 1 billion times more massive than our sun. What could have possibly moved something so enormous? A team of astronomers led by Marco Chiaberge at the Space Telescope Science Institute think that they've found the most plausible explanation. Taking a look at the Hubble image, there's some faint material surrounding the galaxy called tidal tails, and these are produced by a gravitational tug between two or more colliding galaxies. If this galaxy is actually two galaxies that merged, then it's possible their two central supermassive black holes also merged. As enormous objects like supermassive black holes are merging, they create ripples in the fabric of space-time called gravitational waves. The two black holes whirl around each other, getting closer and closer, and fling out gravitational waves like water from a lawn sprinkler. If the two black holes are a bit uneven, maybe one's more massive, maybe one's rotating a little bit faster, then they fling out these gravitational waves more strongly along one direction. Once the two black holes finally collide, the newly merged black hole shoots off in the opposite direction from the strongest gravitational waves, and that's what astronomers think happened to this supermassive black hole. Based on its enormous mass and velocity, the energy needed to jettison this black hole was equivalent to something like 100 million supernovas exploding simultaneously. So, while this may not go on your list of the top prettiest
insane.
Hubble images, just think. You are looking at the light emitted 8 billion years ago from gas orbiting a 1 billion solar mass black hole that is flying through its galaxy because it was shot off like a rocket from the gravitational waves produced by the merging of two supermassive black holes. And if that's not cool, I don't know what is.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yes.
So Tom, 100 million supernovas.
Yeah, when I first read it, I first read this article, I texted you right away. I was like, they're claiming it's 100 million supernova worth of energy.
That's just a number.
Because, yeah, so...
You can't even rationally think about that.
When we took astronomy courses and we talked about supernovas, the way you described them is that when the supernova goes off, that one event, that supernova, is brighter than has more luminosity or brightness than the rest of the whole galaxy that it's in for that instantaneous moment that it happens. And they're saying that this is 100 million supernova worth of energy. So this is literally like, if this is exactly true, which they seem pretty confident on these numbers, this is like a mega event of the universe. Like just an absolute mega event, like almost a mini Big Bang. That's so much energy.
So
100 million supernova. Like, I honestly don't even know what to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, by definition, amazing. Like you just said, a supernova for a short period of time has more energy than a whole galaxy's worth of stars combined. That's insane.
And then you take 100 million of those. You can't even think of these numbers. Because it doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense.
Just too large
rationally.
Numbers.
I mean, it does if you do the math, I guess, but...
Yeah, actually trying to conceptualize these things.
You can. You can. That's why I love space. It's awesome. More space news.
A good space story always puts life in perspective, I think. That it's a crazy world out there.
And kudos to Katrina Jackson for that.
Yeah, great video.
Yeah, really great video. Phenomenal.
I always love when I find videos that make interesting or complex topics easy to wrap your head around like that.
Those were really nice visuals that they provided with that as well, I thought. All right, moving forward. More space news. Number 4. The Mars Curiosity rover has been roaming the surface of our neighboring planet since August 6, 2012. With 1,644 Martian sols, or Martian days, under its belt, and about 16 kilometers traveled, Curiosity's wheels have finally started showing signs of wear. Quote, the mission's first and second brakes and raised treads, called grousers, appeared in a March 19th image check of the wheels, documenting that these brakes occurred after the last check on January 27th, end quote. The broken treads are not expected to interfere with Curiosity's ascent up the slope of Mount Sharp. According to Curiosity project manager Jim Erickson at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, Tom, quote, all 6 wheels have more than enough working lifespan remaining to get the vehicle to all destinations planned for the mission, end quote. Currently, Curiosity is, quote, examining sand dunes in the geographical region known as the Murray Butts Formation. Once finished, it will proceed up higher to a feature known as Vera Rubin Ridge, inspecting a layer that is rich in the mineral hematite. From there, it will proceed to even higher elevations to inspect layers that contain clays and sulfates, end quote. Image credit goes to NASA JPL Caltech and Malin Space Science Systems for the picture of the busted wheel, Tom.
So before we talk about the wheels real quick, I like to bring up that they say that, once again, it's looking for hematite, which we talked about before, that where you find hematite, you're looking for signs of water. And they're also looking for clays or sulfates, and that's also, a lot of times, they come from environments where you would previously have had water.
Correct.
So they're always looking for water in some sort of sense or another, usually, with the rover. So then, going back to the tires, we were kind of joking around before. This is an extremely expensive, multi-billion-dollar machine, right?
At least multi-million. If not multi-billion.
I think it is.
I would say, multi-billion.
So, these tires aren't, the Firestone that you got from the junkyard, but, like, it's driving around on Mars, over time, there's, wear and tear, and it happens.
They They seem to be just reporting on this just for the sake
Just
of
for the
reporting.
sake of having news about the rover.
Yeah, exactly. Because nobody seems surprised by this.
Like,
They're like,
yeah, no, it's kind of wearing and tearing,
Yeah.
but it's still doing its thing.
yeah, and it's just one wheel, and it's like, yeah, it's been on there for 4 years now. So what do you expect?
They're just looking for a little attention, maybe.
Yeah.
Chris Dudo says Firestone. We were joking around like that. Should have used Goodyear. Exactly. Guys.
Yes. The Michelin Man.
Yeah, rover clickbait. You know, they got to keep themselves relevant.
Yeah.
You know, if they don't find life on Mars, like Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds did, you got to make a story about a broken wheel, you know?
Exactly. And we're going to be here to cover it. No, I think it's interesting because now, you know, the Curiosity rover gave us our first confident proof that conditions for water, and for liquid water were pretty prevalent on Mars long ago. Because, right, it's in a crater, so it's looking at older Martian surface, and now it's climbing its way up out of the crater, so it's getting just a nice formation, you know, like
a profile of the
of the outcrop here.
Yeah.
And so by looking for hematite and clays and sulfates, they're going to be able to kind
in
of
that
say,
cross section, kind of put in a history of when that might have happened.
right, and where did it maybe stop on Mars. If we can know when it stopped, then we can look for more clues as to why it stopped. You know?
So, yeah, that's a good point to make. As you're coming up out of the crater and you go through a cross section of rock, like from one section to another section could be a long amount of time depending on what things are being eroded or what things are being deposited.
Yep.
So as they look for those different things like hematites and like what they're looking for, you piece together like a time picture, of how it all kind of works out.
Yeah.
So pretty cool stuff.
Pretty cool, yeah.
Kind of same way you would look at an outcrop here on Earth and say, here's this deposit, what was going on in the environment to make it. Being able to do that on Mars is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
So, we're moving on
Moving
from space.
Back to Earth.
Back to Earth,
Yep.
guys.
So, Tom, the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, has released the newest version of the International Cloud Atlas, a reference for observing and identifying clouds. New cloud classifications have been added for the first time in over 30 years.
Yeah, and I was already having enough trouble remembering the other cloud names.
Yeah, man. Clouds are difficult. So, Kyle is going to kind of thumb through the website here.
Some of the different names, and you can see what they look like.
Yep, and I'll read you guys what they wrote about the new classifications. So, quote, the new International Cloud Atlas has added a new species, volutus, or roll cloud, from the Latin volutus, which means rolled. Go figure. Which occurs within the general altocumulus and stratocumulus. It describes a long, typically low, horizontal tube-shaped cloud mass that often appears to roll about a horizontal axis. I think that's supposed to say.
Okay.
So that guy is pretty cool.
So that one kind of looks like there's like a little bit of vorticity, you would say, like in the atmosphere that's causing a tube-like formation to form.
Yeah, so it's almost
cool.
like it's tumbling kind of this way a little bit. You ever seen a cloud like that, Tom?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't think so.
Moving on, 5 new supplementary features have been added. Asperitas, Cavum, Cauda, often known as tail cloud, Fluctus, widely known as Kelvin-Helmholtz wave, and Murus, known as wall cloud.
So they're getting pretty technical with these names.
Yeah.
But some of them look really cool. How do you say that? Fluctus?
Fluctus, I guess.
Fluctus? That looks like you got like almost like little Loch Ness monster heads almost.
Yeah,
like peeking up.
It looks like fake water waves were drawn.
Pretty
almost. Cool. And the asperitas is pretty cool too. They have a little bit more here about asperitas. Best known of these is asperitas, from the Latin meaning roughness. Photographs of the dramatic wave-like cloud captured the popular imagination around the world. The Cloud Appreciation Society argued for a new classification to be used to describe clouds with this appearance. The atlas includes the winning photograph from a Cloud Appreciation Society competition on asperitas. So, that's cool. I didn't know that there was a Cloud Appreciation Society. That sounds like a Boulder Dash acronym.
Yeah, I'm part of the Cloud Appreciation Society.
Cloud Appreciation Society. Cool. Asperitas was first identified with the help of citizen science enabled by modern technology. When Cloud Appreciation Society members send us photographs of dramatic skies from around the world, it is possible to spot patterns. This is how the proposal for a new classification came about, and we are delighted the WMO has chosen to include it in their definitive reference work for cloud classification. That's a quote by Gavin Prater-Pinney, founder of the Cloud Appreciation Society.
Cool.
So that's pretty sweet. Yeah, I mean, if I saw that formation...
With those, like, divot rivets inside the clouds.
Yeah, I would be like, that's definitely a new cloud.
Yeah, so what's really interesting about all these type of clouds is that, just to go through a quick definition or like a process of how a cloud would form. So if you took like a little packet of air that was on the surface and you raise it up, as it rises up, there's less pressure on it. So as it begins to expand, because of less pressure, it continues to expand. And as it expands, it begins to condense. And as it keeps rising and condensing, at a certain layer, you reach the pressure or where it reaches the dew point where it can condense.
Okay.
So that would be the bottom of the cloud level. So that's why usually when you look at clouds, there's a flat level, because you need to be at a certain height to allow those rising air parcels to expand enough to then condense and make water droplets.
I see.
So that's why you get a flat layer on the bottom of clouds. And to get something like this, you'd have to have a lot of very interesting conditions in the atmosphere that I'm not really too sure about.
Yeah.
Because if you look up 99 out of 100 days of the year, clouds are going to have a flat bottom. Even if they're puffy on the top, they're usually a flat layer the way they form.
Yeah.
So these are some pretty cool conditions, I would imagine, where we don't see these clouds every day when we look in the sky.
No, definitely not.
So a little more of a specialized version of clouds.
What do you think might cause that? Turbulence and pressure, or just...
I honestly wouldn't know what would be able to come across that.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that before, so...
Maybe some interesting temperature profile. Maybe as you go up, instead of getting cooler, you might get a weird inversion, and you might have a lot of, upper atmosphere winds, just maybe, causing various things to happen. Like, it's kind of like when we were trying to describe the lava lamp. It's like a fluid, these clouds, and it's extremely complicated to really grasp what's going on with them.
Yeah, definitely. Moving along, a new accessory cloud, Flumen, has been included, commonly known as Beaver's Tail. It is associated with a supercell severe convective storm. So we'll take a look at that, the Flumen guy here. So that's a beaver tail.
And they said that's associated with what kind of?
Supercell severe convective storms.
Yeah, you can tell it's like a super vertical cloud.
I would
get
not
a lot of thunderstorms in that one.
I would not want to be in the middle of that. I can tell you that much.
Yep.
And then the International Cloud Atlas also proposes 5 new special clouds: cataractogenitis, flammagenitis, homogenitis, sylvagenitis, and homomutatus.
There's going to be a quiz after this.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
The suffix genitis indicates localized factors that led to cloud formation or growth, while mutatus is added when these cause the clouds to change from a different form. This is a tough website to read. The special clouds are influenced by large waterfalls, localized heat from wildfires, saturation of air above forests and humans. Thus, a common example of homogenitis is contrails, sometimes seen after aircraft, end quote. And all these images, obviously, are brought to you guys by the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO.
So it's interesting. You can get different types of cloud formations just by being near a wildfire, or certain interactions from forest or humans can literally just make these new cloud formations because of creating different conditions of pressure and moisture.
Yeah.
Just coming up with these new different parameters that make these cloud systems form.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
These I'm more
common,
familiar with, yeah.
Like you see them rising off the mountain, or like the mist coming up as it rises. Yeah, those kind of make more sense. You've seen things like that.
Dude, remember when we went to Niagara Falls?
Is that a picture?
I think
of
it might be, yeah.
It looks like it.
That was awesome, by the way. That was really cool.
So it's definitely cool to think about all the new types of clouds, but I don't think remembering any of the names in particular would really do you any good.
Oh no.
Kind of just more being aware that there's a lot of different type of cloud formations that can form besides just your basic cloud.
Yeah.
Depending on lots of different conditions.
I mean, this is cool and all, but like in my eyes, you're not a real cloud unless you have a Harry Potter broom named after you. So,
all right,
we'll see. Number 6. Cancer-causing mutations in cells are typically divided into two major sources, environmental factors and hereditary factors. But according to a recent study by Christian Tomasetti, Lou Lee, and Bert Vogelstein, a third source results from DNA replication errors, which are actually the leading factor to account for statistically. Quote, "This hypothesis has generated much scientific and public debate and confusion, in part because our analysis was confined to explaining the relative risk of cancer among tissues rather than the contribution of each of the three potential sources of mutations, environmental, hereditary, and replicative, to any single cancer type or cancer case." And I should say that they're referencing their previous study right there. They're saying that our previous study was a little confusing and hard to interpret because we never accounted for each of these different factors individually. So now they're going to do that. Determination of the contributions of I'm just going to abbreviate them like they do here, E, H, and R, to a cancer type or a cancer case is challenging. In some patients, the contribution of H or R factors might be high enough to cause all the mutations required for that patient's cancer, whereas in others, some of the mutations could be due to H, some due to R, and the remainder due to E. Here we perform a critical evaluation of the hypothesis that replicative mutations play a major role in cancer. Our evaluation is predicated on the expectation that the number of endogenous mutations are resulting from stem cell divisions in a tissue, unlike those caused by environmental exposures, would be similarly distributed at a given age across human populations. Right? So they're saying that statistically speaking, you are more likely to develop a cancer due to just random mutations as you get older,
as opposed to just direct environmental influences.
Statistically, right?
Yes.
Statistically.
Not saying that those environmental influences don't have a big impact.
Exactly. Though the number of stem cell divisions may vary with genetic constitution, for example, taller individuals may have more stem cells, these divisions are programmed into our species' developmental patterns. In contrast, deleterious environmental and inherited factors, either of which can directly increase the mutation rate or the number of stem cell divisions, vary widely among individuals and across populations, end quote. So again, there is some bias here. There always will be when you do a statistical study like this, but we can still say with some certainty in the way that they studied this that this is going to be the most likely kind of statistical cause for you to get cancer. So the researchers evaluated cancer incidence over a large sample size, including cases across 69 countries, and looking at data from 17 different types of cancer. In the graphic provided by Tomasetti, Lee, and Vogelstein's study, we can see the percentage each factor contributes to varying types of cancer. So I'm going to bring that up along with Kyle for you guys. The picture here, right, so H for hereditary, R for random, E for environmental, they're showing you with the brightness of how red each piece is, your percentage that
is likely the...
Right, from that factor, your percentage to cause that cancer. So they abbreviate the letters here, but I'll read them off for you. Here, B is for brain cancer, BL is for bladder cancer, BR is for breast cancer, C for cervical, CR for colorectal, which we talked about not too long ago on the show, E for esophagus, HN for head and neck, K for kidney, LI for liver, LK for leukemia, LU for lung, M for melanoma, NHL for non-Hodgkin lymphoma, O for ovarian, P for pancreas, S for stomach, TH for thyroid, and U for uterus. There's a lot of cancers, Tom.
Yeah, you got a lot of body parts.
Seriously.
A lot of places that can go wrong.
And so you can see here that the random mutations generally make up the brightest kind of factor for a lot of different types of cancers. But for things like leukemia, it's still driven by environmental factors. And
whereas if you put a big strain on your lungs, that's only going to cause further chances for mutation.
Right.
So just to kind of go over a random mutation really quick, it's important to explain that as you're growing and as you're aging, all the time you're making new cells and you're constantly needing to make new DNA, right?
Yep.
So when you make new cells, you need to replicate your DNA, so it sort of separates it out. You get a single strand of RNA, then they copy it, and then it comes back together. So when you're getting that random mutation, that's when it's opening up, copying itself, and coming back together. That's, there's some sort of leeway or chance for a mistake to happen.
Yeah.
Where that mistake is a random mutation, but it turns out that when you're replicating the DNA, that random mutation is actually what they're saying the biggest statistical factor to getting cancer.
Correct.
So that's why you see those people who, when they smoked their whole lives and never got cancer, that's, it kind of just happens. You got lucky.
Yeah.
You didn't have any random mutations, thankfully, even though you put a lot of strain on your lungs.
Right.
But, there is a lot of randomness to it, and you don't want to, fuel the fire by adding any more things that might be able to lead towards cancer. So
right.
You can only prevent the things you can prevent. You can't prevent your random mutations yet, but I know at Brookhaven National Lab right now, they're looking at exactly how that process occurs, doing research to kind of get a better sense of the exact physical structures of how it opens up, replicates, comes back together, and is there a way we can make it foolproof so you don't get those random mutations?
Exactly.
To ultimately kind of try and cure cancer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cool
exciting
research going on out there.
Yeah. I think the last kind of quote here that they have from the study is the most interesting to me. So, quote, "These studies provide a well-defined molecular explanation for the large and apparently unpreventable component of cancer risk that has long puzzled epidemiologists. It is, of course, possible that virtually all mutations in all cancers are due to environmental factors, most of which have simply not yet been discovered. However, such a possibility seems inconsistent with the exhaustively documented fact that about 3 mutations occur every time a normal cell divides, and that normal stem cells often divide throughout life," end quote. So they're saying here, statistically speaking, like,
there's so much replication and remaking where that has to be the biggest factor.
Yeah, no matter, kind of what they're saying is no matter what you do with your life and how you try to control your environment and like maybe not not smoke cigarettes and not eat red meat and do all this stuff, there's still an underlying huge factor of like, well, you just never know. You just still might get it.
Things don't always work out beautifully in a biological system.
Yeah, but that being said, you should always take as many
health precautions
as you can, and you should get screened as early and as often as possible. So, number 7.
Yep.
This was supposed to be on last week's show, but of course we had OBS trouble last week, so we didn't have a way to play the video. But our good friend Ryan Nash, friend of the program, longtime friend of the program, sent us a video, tagged us in the video, just like you guys can. The video comes by way of Collings Creative on Facebook and depicts beautiful bioluminescence on the shorelines of Tasmania. Masses of Noctiluca scintillans, which is Latin for sparkling nightlight, exhibits this blue sea glow when disturbed. So I'm going to click over to here, and Kyle, you tell me when to hit it. Okay, and here we go. That's crazy.
Straight out of a scene from the movie Avatar.
That's right.
This is the world we live in. It's amazing. And this is all bioluminescence, right?
Yeah, so
this is created from living organisms.
Right. These are just little plankton type creatures that live kind of right on the shoreline, and when you disturb them, they emit light. So you can see as he steps in, or he or she steps in there. So crazy. Have you ever seen anything like?
No,
not like this,
that.
But have you ever seen bioluminescence before?
No, I haven't.
I saw it
not
once.
Like in nature. Like I've seen videos and things, but never in person in nature.
In the summertime, every once in a while, the Peconic Bay, you can see it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's not anything close to what you would see like in this video. Yeah, really, really nice. So thank you for that, Ryan, and of course you guys out there, you can always contribute to the show by tagging us in things across various social media websites if you'd like us to cover it. Tom, we've got a new segment that
to finish off the show.
So, like you said, it's going to be not necessarily something that comes up in the week's news.
So the first part of our show, like we did just now, was pretty much the last week of science news, and we want to keep bringing you, the stuff that we come across the most, seeing the most popular science news, so we're going to keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But then as we do a little bit more of our own reading, sometimes we're a little more well-versed on other topics, so might as well bring those into the show as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you proposed it as something you would like to lead the charge on here, and I think that's awesome. And so the new segment will be called
Tom's Corner.
Tom's Corner.
Just came up with it right now. No,
put you on the spot there. Sorry.
That's okay.
But yeah, so Tom's Corner
here we
this
go.
week is going to be about what, my friend?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about meditation and how it may have medical benefits and what it can do to improve your life, basically.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go through kind of what this article says about it, and then we'll go from there.
Very cool.
So, got an article from Scientific American that said, while many people find great benefits from meditation, there's little research done that can definitively point to any actual health benefits, and the research that has been done is criticized as being done poorly or in small sample sizes. So they included only trials in which subjects were randomly assigned to a group that either meditated or participated in a control intervention such as cognitive behavior therapy or other mindfulness training. So what they're saying is that you can't just look at somebody meditating who, as opposed to somebody not meditating. So they're saying we're trying to see how meditation works as a tool as opposed to other sort of mindfulness or cognitive behavior learning. So kind of comparing it to other branches of thinking or the way you learn to think, basically.
Right. And we were kind of talking a little bit about this, and the reason they do this, they need a control
to show what the meditation is actually doing,
right,
as opposed to the process of mindfully thinking about your thoughts kind of thing.
But it's tough to find a control about meditation because there needs to be some sort of parity with the act of meditating, and what you were bringing up before is that another task, what you're focusing on, another task that is similar to meditating, whether it be like reading music,
a mindful coloring books,
or something like that. No matter what it is not meditation. So this is a tough thing to study, but continue.
So to make for a fair comparison, the control had to require a similar amount of time and focus as meditation. So trying to compare things in a similar time frame as well as what they're covering. Mm-hmm. So Goyle and his colleagues also considered whether the researchers attending to the subjects knew what intervention they had received, and ideally they should not, because this knowledge can influence how researchers interact with and assess the subjects. So this is a very subjective thing and hard to measure.
Yeah.
So ideally you don't even want the people to know what kind of mindful activity they're actually doing,
right,
and what it's supposed to be doing for them. So it's super hard to keep people in the dark. People know what they're doing when they're doing it. So it's extremely hard to do this kind of research. So only 3% of meditation studies had met their stringent criteria. So almost none meet these criteria that they think should be there.
Right.
But the researchers found moderate evidence that mindfulness meditation can alleviate pain, anxiety, and depression, the latter two to a similar degree as antidepressant drug therapy. So I've been on a lot of antidepressant drugs for pain, and I've also done a lot of meditation for pain. So as we get to the end here, I'll kind of explain both in regard to me.
Yeah.
And then the most popular type of meditation is mindfulness meditation, which involves oneself trying to engage with the present moment as much as possible. Also, meditation may provide broad lifestyle benefits. This is a quote. Meditation may provide broad lifestyle benefits that go beyond treating disease and are thus hard to measure.
Gotcha.
So I like this article because people say all the time, meditation can be good for your health. It can really help you out. But science can't tell you if you do this will happen from meditating.
Right.
So there's been many cases of when people meditate, they get a lot less anxiety. People meditate, they can lower their pain levels. But they're saying that these studies, it's extremely hard to correlate if you meditate, this will happen. So I say, let's move on from that. It's cool to look at the research that's going on. But from a personal standpoint, I've been able to very easily engage in the act of meditation now. It doesn't take me a long time. Once I start, I can sort of get my heart rate down. I can get my blood flow up a little bit, because what I was doing in the past, I was doing something called biofeedback meditation.
Okay.
So that I would actually get hooked up to a heartbeat sensor and a body temperature sensor.
Wow.
And what I would do is I would stare at the heartbeat and I would try and get it as low as possible while trying to get my body temperature as high as possible. And after practicing day in and day out, you can literally lower your heart rate drastically, like 20%, and you could raise your body temperature by even a few degrees. And you get a lot of increased circulation, and you can do a lot to your own body simply by allowing yourself the time to sort of get the connection from stimuli to making thoughts and then interpreting the world to kind of disconnecting the stimuli to those thoughts and just being in that moment, just taking in the senses. Because the act of mindfulness, it's sort of saying that if you're super focused in on this moment, that these concepts of anxiety and pain and all these things that build up, it's kind of like a series of getting beaten down over and over again by these certain type of thoughts where you might become anxious or depressed, or allowing muscles to become tight and you're not even aware of it. But being able to meditate and realize how much control you do have over your own body as you practice more and more and more and more, it becomes like a skill, an art, where I've done it, I do it every day, you can change a lot about what's going on in your body. Like, I'll have a big sort of tight spot in my neck and I'll really chill out and I'll meditate after exercising, and it really helps with muscle spasms just by sitting there breathing and taking the time to actually make it work.
Yeah.
So for the first time today, I think you and me meditated for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, how did you feel about it and would you continue?
So, I enjoyed it. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
You, me, and Kyle went out.
I would recommend starting like 10 minutes.
Yeah, we did just a 10-minute block. We threw on Beethoven and another just kind of ambient soundtrack.
One I would recommend if you want to try is if you go to Pandora, if you put in meditation, the first one that comes up is calm meditation music.
Okay.
And it has like a vast variety of, just simple, nice to listen to sounds that kind of help you center in and focus.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I found it very calming, and I mentioned to you, this idea of trying to drain your mind of thoughts it's hard to do. I knew it was going to be hard to do for the first time, but I felt like I kept kind of being able to do it, and I would be able to sort of hear more about the outside surroundings, like the birds chirping and like the planes going overhead, than I would have normally. But then after a few seconds or a minute or so of this, my mind would just wrap itself up into more crazy thoughts, and then I would have to consciously be like, wait, no, try to go back to zero again.
Yeah.
So it's gonna definitely take me some time to develop, I think, the skill that you have with it. But I would try it again. I think it's important. We were talking a little bit before we tried it about how in today's society where everybody has a smartphone and constant connection to the internet.
That stream of conscious thoughts that you get.
Yeah.
Not only do you, like, when you meditate, you realize they're always there, but then you also have that constant feed of thoughts from another device that's coming into you.
Right.
So some people literally don't get more than 15 seconds to not think about something for the whole day. So I would really recommend it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important going forward.
The way I like to describe it to people to kind of get them excited to do it is the first time you do it, I like to explain it like you're like a 6-year-old at a really crowded playground, and there's way too many noises, way too many thoughts, way too many kids yelling, kids fighting over the slide, yelling, crying, strollers everywhere. That's just like the way it happens. There's so much stimulus out there.
Yeah.
When if you're not skilled at drowning out what you want to, it's just a bombardment of stimuli. Mm-hmm. And at first, for the first few days, you might be very discouraged that I can't stop these, I can't let my thoughts go. A lot of people get super frustrated. But over time, that once chaotic place that you sat in where you felt like you didn't fit in, now I feel like after you do it over and over again, you feel like you can drown out sounds when you need to. You can sort of focus more on your breath and breathing, or you can focus on like the touch, how it feels where you're sitting, your posture. Mm-hmm. You can sort of focus on individual things and not be distracted by all these thoughts that wouldn't allow you to focus on all these things that you usually do involuntarily.
Right.
So whereas your posture, your heartbeat, what's going on with your circulation system, your sympathetic nerve system, all of these things you can change simply by breathing and focus of your attention. And I would really recommend anybody having trouble with literally almost anything in their life, I think it's a great tool to use.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you're struggling with.
Yeah, at least give it a shot. It's a personal thing. I mean,
if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you see all these movies, don't you feel like, I want to be like that monk? You know, he sits there and he's gone, you know?
Yeah.
He's not here anymore, and he's like on another plane of existence almost. And that's what I strive to be. I watch things, I watched a few TED Talks. There's a lot of cool stuff out there of people who are professional meditators, I guess you can call them. You know, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And when you listen to them talk about it, it's only got me more and more excited. And I like bringing people into it because it's one of those things you can do it on your own, doesn't cost you any money, and I think it has a vast amount of positive effects that it can have on your life.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And that's that for the First Time's Corner.
Yeah, First Time's Corner. That was a good one, man. A heavy one. Yeah, we got some really nice feedback in the chat here. Nancy Kalita says, "You're awesome, Tom, for sharing your experience. Helps others." I completely agree with that. Thank you for opening up that personal story to us. Kayla Riley says, "Tom, can you lead a meditation for us one day?"
I would. I actually have been doing one that I call like the Curious Scientist, where it's like pretending you're standing on a new planet for the first time ever, and you're the first person there.
Awesome.
And you need to be the one to sort of take in the stimulus. What are the sounds? What do you see? What are the feelings? Like,
Really
where
cool.
almost you need to just take a step back and think about how you perceive the world.
Yeah.
So maybe if we have time, one week we could do that.
Yeah.
If people would be interested.
Awesome. Chris Dudo says, 100% for sure. I've had success with it.
Great.
That's awesome. And Nash Money says he
loved it.
loved it. So
yeah, he's been telling me he does things with breathing exercises and stuff. So it's great to see people trying to, you know, go a little bit outside the box to find remedies to what they need for their life.
Right on. Well, thank you guys for being here with us today. I think this was a phenomenal
Had a good
show.
time
Yeah.
today.
Episode 8, dude. We got more episodes than Star Wars now.
Ooh,
Oh,
it's exciting.
oh.
So remember, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and if you feel so inclined, Patreon as well at the end.
Yeah. So thanks again, guys, and we will catch you all next week.
Thanks for joining us, guys.